If you watch this video, I'm going to show you real-life methods that will make graphic design easier than ever in 2026. Now, you might have heard me talk about design systems before, but let's bring it down to what it really means in 2026. Now, a lot of designers, maybe you yourself, spend too much time building isolated layouts or entire designs over and over again. So like one poster, one ad, one campaign, all from scratch each and every single time. That's exhausting, and it's truly an outdated approach that isn't all that smart when you look at it. Don't get me wrong, it is fine doing that, but I found a far better approach. The truth is, good designers use design systems. For example, imagine you're designing a series of posters for a film festival. Most designers will start with a layout, then they might pick some typefaces, move some assets around, and then try to repeat that for the next 3 posters. But a system thinking designer handles things a bit differently. They'll spend the first hour or so building a grid logic, setting some margins, organizing a kind of rhythm or layout, but also importantly spacing rules such as how much micro and macro white space will be on these posters. And this will be based around the brief, the target audience, and the knowledge of the application of the design itself. Now, when it comes to making the next poster, everything already falls into place. Of course, you will make small tweaks such as, some tweaks to the layout, perhaps having a graphic design bleed over a certain area and so forth. But the key thing here is that you don't start from zero each time. You're simply playing within your own framework, like building a house after the important foundations are already in place. But what's even cooler than this is that if you save this framework and you can use it again on an entirely different project. Yes, the brief will be different, but you'll hold your own style throughout different projects, kind of like your design signature, but then you just tailor the details to meet the brief's content. This is the first way that you can make your life a whole lot easier in 2026 as a graphic designer. You're not faster because you've been rushing, you're actually faster because you've built a machine framework that keeps momentum moving. Now here's where graphic design gets really exciting for me in 2026, and it is something I've been experimenting with already. We used to open up one program, do everything manually, and then export each version by hand. That was fine 5 years ago, but this is 2026. Your tools should be talking to each other by now. Let's say you're designing visuals for a local fringe style clothing brand. You create a clean poster to announce their new drop, so bold typography, heavy colors, just a few striking and bold designs that fit the brand. But the same design also needs to exist as a storefront vinyl, an Instagram carousel, and a tiny product tag. The old way would mean that you would export one version at a time. You manually resize and restructure it, you rename it, and then you send off to endless different folders. The modern way is stacking workflows. And sure, you can use automation features in Adobe as an example, but what I'm talking about here goes to the next level. And here's how you actually do this. Start by exporting your design using saved presets tailored for specific needs like print, social media, or packaging. Then connect your export folder to an automation tool like Zapier, Cloudinary, or just local shortcuts. So when a new file lands in your designated folder, so final exports for example, the system automatically creates compressed client previews. It resizes versions for social media and uploads everything to shared client folders. This workflow is simple, it's reliable, and literally saves hours by automating repetitive tasks. It lets you focus on design rather than manual exports and just that kind of thing. But I have to emphasize that if you want to make things really smooth, test your workflow thoroughly before relying on it. Organize your folders clearly, customize the steps to your specific needs, and always keep backups of your original files in case something goes wrong. It is a professional time-saving solution for handling high-volume projects with consistency and ease. So, let's talk about the obvious. AI. And according to a recent poll that I ran here on YouTube, only 21% of you guys and gals do not use AI. But I'm sure many of the designers who are using it are either confused by it, are using it incorrectly, or not using it to its full potential. So say you're designing a jazz festival set of posters or flyers. You're a competent designer, so you already know the mood of this design because you've studied the brief and the target audience. You need a free-flowing and creative kind of vibe, but you're not sure where to begin visually. Instead of scrolling Pinterest for hours or sketching down ideas, which is completely fine, or as some naughty designers out there do, copy another design completely in some way, you can actually run with an AI prompt. Suggest some awesome concepts and style guides for a free-flowing and creative set of posters for a local jazz festival. Instantly, you've got visual cues, possible colors, shapes, abstract directions. And you're not copying here at all. You're extracting possible themes and ideas, sort of like a think tank or design agency would. Then you pull those ideas and do your own special thing with them. You create something original. I hope you can see that as a graphic designer, you still need the foresight and the knowledge to direct things here from the brief and ultimately make the end result. You're still the designer, and now your creative brain is running anime style over mountains. But AI also extends to the client side of things as well. Now this one's a bit of a secret weapon really. In 2026, the smartest designers are using AI to test their thinking. It shouldn't be about generating a logo or a layout or something like that. This is about simulating feedback before you ever send your work out into the world. And here's how it works. Let's say you're preparing a visual presentation for a brand campaign. Normally, you'd build the slides, you'd refine your talking points, and you'd hope the client understands your creative direction. But before hitting send, you open up an AI assistant and you type, "What might a client misunderstand about this concept?" And in seconds, it gives you simulated feedback, things like your color palette feels too young for the audience, or the typeface might not align with their tone of voice. So now you can fix those issues before the client lays eyes on your work, which is really cool. By the time the client sees a presentation, you've already pre-solved their doubts or their queries. The feedback that would typically catch you off guard has been anticipated and handled beforehand. Now here's something I'm sure every designer wish they understood earlier. Most of your visual impact does not come from fancy techniques or complex compositions. It comes from a handful of invisible rules that quietly make everything feel balanced, confident, and intentional. This is what I call the 80-20 split of visual logic. It's where 20% of what you do creates 80% of the final result. It's the kind of stuff you can't always explain with words. The alignment, the tension between two elements, how the white space breathes between text and image, or the directional flow that guides the viewer's eye through a layout. These are the silent forces of design, and in 2026, if you know how this works fully, your life will be a whole lot easier. And here's an example. Imagine you're creating an ad for a luxury scent oil or perfume. In version 1, the bottle sits dead center, the type is neatly aligned, and everything is technically correct. It's clean, but it's also a little bit lifeless. Now take version 2. You offset the bottle slightly, you twist it, you reorder the typography, and suddenly you have a more interesting and more memorable design. One that looks like it actually belongs in a high-end magazine. Nothing overly dramatic has changed as such, just the logic behind the spacing, the rhythm, and the flow. When you start noticing these invisible forces, so the tension, the spacing, the movement, the layout, design becomes almost effortless. You stop guessing what looks right, and instead you start feeling what is right as a designer, and that's instinctively known. But as always guys, if you didn't get your fill of graphic design content with this video, just click another video on screen. But until next time, design your future today. Peace.